and welcome to the premiere of SHU Community Magazine. My name is Ken Zinizeski, and I'll be the host for this 30-minute student-produced news program. As you might detect from the title, we are affiliated with Sacred Heart University here in Bridgeport. And over the course of the next 3 months, we will be bringing you 3 programs concerning various issues affecting southwestern Connecticut. We begin with Trish Trissani in the first of a 3-part series on the progress of Bridgeport's revitalization.
The state's most populated city is also a city on the move. Riding on the wave of Stanford's revitalization success, Bridgeport, Connecticut has established its own foothold towards urban renewal. Articles on new developments and renovated buildings appear almost daily in the local papers, and indeed, in 1984, new construction and rehabilitation of existing structures occurred at a faster rate than at any other time in Bridgeport's past 20 years. Clearly, change has occurred in Bridgeport. But what kind of change? Who will benefit from it? And when can we expect results? We will attempt to answer these and other questions in our 3-part story, Bringing Bridgeport Back. Bridgeport, like all large cities, is a collection of unique and culturally diverse neighborhoods. Therefore, we have chosen to divide our story into 3 areas. The first will feature the east side, the second the downtown area, and the final segment will encompass the remaining areas of Bridgeport. I spoke with Bridgeport Mayor Leonard S. Paoletta concerning measures needed to reinforce interest in the city.
The suburbs still don't offer all the things that a city is meant to provide. And I mean the museums and the libraries and the ballets and the operas, which we have, and the nightlife, which we will hope to reestablish, as we once were a very, very thriving nightlife city. And those things have to be worked on, and those things have to be reestablished.
Without a doubt, the most ambitious plan for Bridgeport's future is the Harbor Point project. It will be constructed here on the east side of the city, and this is where we choose to begin our show, Bringing Bridgeport Back. The Harbor Point project is being labeled as one of the largest in the nation. Construction will necessitate the demolition of over 25 acres of existing structures. Because of the sheer magnitude of the project, construction is not due to be completed until the year 2005. But one does not have to wait that long to see progress being made here on the east side. Dana Earlbacker is the executive director of the East Main Street Revitalization Association, which takes a grassroots approach to getting local business people involved in the area's restoration.
2 of the goals of the association are, one is to get a lot of the buildings rehabilitated so that they provide a much greater appearance to the street and have people feeling like, gee, you know, this is great. You know, once you get a few going, then other people start rehabilitating themselves. And we provide incentives with low-interest financing, et cetera, to get those first projects going. And then hopefully the theory is, and it has worked in other cities, that other people will begin doing it on their own. Some of that actually has occurred here on the street, as a matter of fact, as a result of some of the things we've done.
Luis Hernandez, owner of Luis Furniture, is one of those merchants that has benefited from the association's program.
If we haven't started what we started a few years ago, by now I probably wouldn't be here.
Could you see any barriers to the program?
Right now, no. We're still struggling, and it will take time, but it's just perseverance is what we need to just keep on at it.
The east side definitely has been overlooked. And I was like, you know, I grew up in this area. And
this is Mr. Samuel Baldwin, the district alderman for the east side. On a tour through his district, he expressed his concern about the future for his constituents.
Right now, I dwell on the housing. Housing in this area is definitely the main concern, because you got the density, overpopulated, you know, more so of households, and but where could you possibly look to, you know, in terms of relocating? I see it in the near future, about 5 years, 6 years, where if we get the adequate police protection in this area, things should flow pretty good.
I spoke with several residents of the east side concerning the revitalization progress.
It's little progress being made, but more can be made. They got to make more efforts, you know, and they're not making enough effort, you know what I'm saying? it's just unreal, the things that do happen, you know, and the things that people can be rehabilitated from, you know, for it.
I think it's good for the neighborhood. There's a lot of people putting a lot of dollars into the area, and I think it's turning around the east side.
If it's going to happen, it's going to be slow, and it's going to take a lot of time, because there's a lot of things to be stopped. You know, killing, you got stealing, and everything else. The East Side renovation program is helping it out a little, though, with them renovating the East Side and all. But I think the East Side will be a better place to live in the next 2 or 3 years.
We believe people should be aware of the folks who have not allowed their paint to peel, and we think they should support those people and then use those people to help turn to the guy with the peeling paint or whatever his problem is and say, you know, look, there's hope in this area, and take your paint off and redo your building. And that's the kind of momentum that we think is starting on the street, and we think is definitely starting on the east side. So we feel good about it.
The wheels of change are in motion here on the east side. This area of the city did not deteriorate overnight, so progress will be gradual. But local and federal governments have provided incentives for the rehabilitation of this area. These incentives, combined with hard work and perseverance, will provide the needed changes in the east side. Our next story will focus on the downtown area, where most of the visual changes already have begun. This is Trish Trisani for SHU Community Magazine.
With all the advantages of an area's redevelopment, there are certain drawbacks. In this next report, Annette Dexter examined the impact of these changes on the area's independent fishermen.
For years, commercial fishing has been a part of our New England heritage. Fishermen have faced problems such as the weather and pollution in the waterways. Recently, their number has dwindled drastically. Some say this is due to the lack of affordable dock space. Steve Homan, reporter for the Bridgeport Post, recently did a series of articles on shoreline development. He spoke with me about the Connecticut Commercial Fishermen's Association.
Since 1977, they've been working primarily to establish some kind of a place in Connecticut's industry for themselves. Their primary problem is finding dock space, which is left in price, I think, about 3 times in the past 5 to 8 years. So they're starting to lobby with the state DEP and with the state legislators to have some kind of a unified effort to lower the price of dock space and give them access to the shoreline.
What about the commercial developers, you know, taking up the waterfront property? Do you think that's the trend now?
That seems to be the trend, especially in the last 5 or 10 years. It started, I guess, in Brantford, and then hit Greenwich quite heavily since 1980 with the development of Palmer's Point and some other condominium, documinium along the Greenwich shoreline. That, I guess, is their major problem. Not just the documiniums, though, but there's pollution along the shoreline and the lack of maintenance of the shoreline. Dredging up rivers, for example, will increase the amount of soil that drifts down the river and plugs up the areas, and so you have to dredge further and further to give the boats access, to make the water deep enough so they can actually moor and tie up along the shoreline.
Okay, so it's not just the condominium developers.
No, but I think that's probably the major reason. The other things have been happening for a number of years, and the documiniums are something that's relatively new. And the documinium owners and developers, for example, say that the fishermen should just unify, and together the commercial fishermen, the developers say, could afford the land, the shoreline, if they would unite.
I spoke with Ford Macheski, a fisherman docked at the Cove Marina in Black Rock. Finding dock space a problem?
Finding dock space is a problem, and I'm very fortunate to be right here. You know, it's a very lovely spot, and you know, it's nice, very advantageous for us. If we weren't here, then the closest place would probably be up to about New Haven, which would mean I'd have to drive another hour every day, and you know, it'd be a heck of a lot less convenient. This is very nice. You know, we get our ice here, we get our fuel here. We put the fish out here, they send them to Fulton Fish Market, and, you know, we've got a very nice arrangement, lovely people to be around, very nice.
I spoke with Kay Williams, the developer of Cove Marina.
Well, the main problem, naturally, is dock space, and in the foreseeable future, I can't see it getting any better. We happen to have several draggers down here and lobster boats, which are very advantageous as far as helping the marina out, and we get our product from them. So for us, it's great, and we'll always have a spot for commercial fishermen. As far as the standard run of the mill goes, meaning an average marina, would have to look at both either a dragger or lobster boats as being somewhat of a deterrent because of the smell and so on and so forth of the vessels. But in our case, it's part of the ambiance that's here, and we you know, being an ex-fisherman, to me, I think it's great, you know, and knowing all of the traits that the people will have being in the commercial industry, how they can get involved in, as far as keeping vessels clean and keeping things neat. We stress that, and so it's been a good relationship with us.
You see that there are young men interested in becoming fishermen?
Any young fellows that are thinking about getting they're graduating from high school and they want to get involved in the marine fisheries is to either get into biology or get into fish management. And I think I've mentioned this before, that beyond any reasonable doubt, by the turn of the century, the fishing industry as a whole will be so catastrophic that it'll make it just about every corporation, the largest corporations in the world today, seem very dwarfed because of the protein value that they'll be able to extract from the sea. And it's such a humongous giant that I just more young people would get involved in it, because the future is just completely mind-boggling.
But do you think the independents are dying out, the independent fishermen?
I don't like to think so, but there always seems to be, you get that feeling, but there's always someone else. There's some kid with a rowboat in a creek or something getting cranked up, and next thing you know, he's growing up and he's getting a little bigger vessel, and it'll always be there. It'll always be there.
It's a nice way to make a living, but not a financially, not a real financial winner, put it that way. If I were a young fellow, I don't think I would go into fishing unless my only other option was to work stacking cans in the A&P or some baloney.
In a world full of hungry people, the fishing industry is destined to grow. Whether or not the independent fishermen will be a part of this is a question yet to be answered. This is Annette Dexter for SHU Community Magazine.
In a city the size of Bridgeport, public transportation is of major importance. Michael Ciccarelli explores this topic.
If you don't drive in Bridgeport, what are your alternatives? You can walk, take a bus, or employ one of Bridgeport's 3 cab services. Bus service here in Bridgeport is provided by the Greater Bridgeport Transit District, with offices here at 525 Water Street on the 3rd floor of the railway station. Bus service is run under the combined auspices of the state of Connecticut and the United States government, and recoups 40% of its funding at the fare box. The Greater Bridgeport Transit District carries over 300,000 commuters per month here in Greater Bridgeport, and we thought we'd talk to some of them and find out how they like service on the line.
Service very nice.
And the condition of the buses?
Yes, yes, nice. Mm-hmm.
You think they're clean?
Yeah, clean, clean.
They're all right. They're not bad. They're in good shape, clean condition. Drivers are very helpful, especially with the handicapped.
It's pretty good. It's, you know, it's fairly good. You know, sometimes they run a little late, but, you know, that's to be expected because of the traffic.
How do you like bus service here in the Greater Bridgeport Transit District?
Not too good.
Not too good? What are your problems with it?
Well, they're always late. Number 1, number 2 is good, but number 17, no, they don't come on time.
The Greater Bridgeport Transit District serves Bridgeport, Fairfield, Stratford, and Trumbull with 18 routes, plus 2 special commuter runs for AFCO and Sikorsky. Combine this with the generally positive comments we've heard and a fare of 75 cents, and you've got one of Bridgeport's best transportation values. If you want more information, you can call the Greater Bridgeport Transit District at 333-3031 or drop in and see them here at Water Street. Bridgeport's second alternative transportation system is its 3 cab companies: Reliable, Quickie, and Yellow. They've garnished their fair share of media attention lately, with articles in the Bridgeport Post and an evening of talk on the Talk It Over program on WICC radio. We thought we'd talk with some of their customers and find out how service is for Bridgeport cabs.
Could be an improvement on the way the cars look. Could be better conditions. The rates are pretty steep.
From what I've experienced, it's not too bad.
How about the conditions of the cabs?
That's a little bit different than the service. That's not quite as good.
How do you like the cab service here in Bridgeport?
It's all right.
How do you find them for on-time performance? Do they come when you call?
No, they don't.
How about the condition of the cabs?
They're fair.
So these are your transportation alternatives here in Bridgeport. From what we've seen and heard, the bus system would be your most efficient, least costly means of transportation, with the cabs needing to make some improvement before they become a viable alternative. For SHU Community Magazine here in downtown Bridgeport, this is Mike Ceccarelli.
The Bridgeport Police Department has found a new mode of travel within the city. John Patterson filed this report.
Bridgeport is changing day to day. On March 18th, mounted police officers will be seen for the first time at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Bridgeport. The officers trained at the mounted police facilities in New Haven. Their trainer, Joy White. What's the standard training period for mounted officers?
It depends on the horse that they choose to ride and the rider's ability to be coordinated enough to ride in the streets. Anywhere from 2 weeks to 12 weeks. The horse and the rider, they really have to be a working team. You have to choose a horse that's compatible for that rider. If you have something that's going to be fighting him all the time, the officer cannot do his work that he's set out there to do, for they are in the high visibility district, and the horse has to work with them. You know, they have to be compatible. They have to like each other. The horse has to be ready to do anything the officer asks him to.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure both temperaments are compatible in that way. They're doing very well, considering you have 2 officers at this point that are starting out with the mounted unit in Bridgeport. That's not an easy task to begin with. There's going to be an awful lot of pressure on them. They are the first of the mounted unit, with several others to follow. So the pressure is right there. Second of all, neither of them have ever really ridden. And you also have 2 new horses that have never seen the streets. So we have a mixture of the babes in the woods, and they're getting along really well. They've come a long way, and the only way to really let them get out there and practice is to see more of the street.
I also spoke with Police Commissioner Norma Verdisco and Mounted Officer Bob Studevant.
Okay, we've been training in New Haven approximately 7 weeks.
Was it tough?
In the beginning it was tough. You find out that you use muscles that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
But it was tough, but it'll all work out for the best.
You like it? You like the horses and everything?
Oh, yes, I like them. You know, they kind of grow on you.
I was under the impression it's going to be in the park. There's other possibilities at hand?
In speculation, I think that we'll be all over. You know, not just necessarily in the parks. Wherever we need, where we can be utilized properly, that's where we'll be.
We're looking to have 6 horses in total, and hopefully that will be before summer. That is, of course, if we can get some donations. We definitely need donations. If someone can donate a horse, we certainly can use tax. And, of course, money is always welcome.
My horse's name is Papazar. We get along great. Our other horse, which the other rider is my partner, Nick Zarella, he has Molly. We might switch up here and there, but they're our babies. We're going to take care of them.
In an age of ever-increasing technology, it's nice to see that a rustic flavor can be brought back to the streets of Bridgeport. The mounted officers will be a welcome addition. John Patterson reporting.
There are more homeless people in America now than at any time since the Great Depression. And with the winter's cold upon us, the plight of the homeless once again enters the national consciousness. Mike Lewis looks into the controversy arising over the proposed relocation of their homeless shelter.
Norwalk, home to some 87,000 people. Like any urban center, Norwalk has its homeless. How do these people survive during these cold winter months? From 9:30 p.m. until 7 each morning, many seek refuge at the Norwalk Kiwanis Emergency Shelter at its temporary location, 41 South Main Street. I talked to Sister Evelyn Avolio, director of the shelter, and to Carl Siciliano, night supervisor, to find out more about the shelter and its residents. How many of Norwalk's homeless does the shelter serve each night?
We have a nightly average attendance of 30 to 35.
What's the maximum number that the shelter can serve each night?
We can accommodate 50 homeless people at a time. The difference is usually for disasters. You know, between the 35 guests we ordinarily have and the possible 50 we could put up. There have been fires and health condemnations and code enforcements, things like that, that make people homeless in a very, very acute, short-term sort of thing.
What are the shelter's working hours?
The direct service hours of the shelter are from 9:30 in the evening to 7 o'clock in the morning. The guests are received at 9:30 and lights out is about 10 o'clock, and wake up is around 6:30, and people should be eating their breakfast and outdoor by 7 a.m.
We're talking with Carl Siciliano, the night supervisor here at the shelter. Carl, why exactly does the shelter have to close at 7 a.m.?
I'd say the main problem is a lack of funding. I mean, we're really struggling to get the money we have right now to run the shelter. And we've been wanting to build the new shelter down on Merritt Street for months and months, and we've had to wait because of a lack of funds. And also, we don't want this to become people's permanent home. I mean, if it was a 24-hour place, you know, the temptation would be to root down and live here.
Carl, some people believe that the shelter brings the undesirable element into South Norwalk. How do you feel about this?
Well, I've been working in South Norwalk, first at the Good Shepherd House, the soup kitchen, and then here for about 3 years, which is 2 years before the shelter opened. And I mean, I was serving these people across the street there. I mean, you know, they didn't just blossom when we opened the shelter out of nowhere. We've got to face the facts that there are serious social problems going on around here, that there are people that have been living in the train station, in homeless, abandoned buildings, in cars, on the streets. You know, they don't come here because of the shelter. The shelter is here to meet that need.
Carl, the proposed new location on Merritt Street for the shelter is somewhat controversial. Why exactly was that site chosen?
The people in charge of finding a new location looked all over Norwalk. I mean, we scoured the city of Norwalk looking for a place. The Merritt Street site is the one place that we found in all of Norwalk, the one place that fits the zoning requirements for a shelter. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, we have to get out of this place. We need a new place to go, and that's the only place we found.
I'm speaking with John Valentik, owner of Andy's Auto Body Shop, across the street from the proposed new location of the emergency shelter. John, how do you feel about the move to this new location?
It scares the living daylights out of me. I see what these people have done uptown, and I think everyone has agreed they don't want it in their particular neighborhood. And I've been here 30 years, and I don't particularly want them in my neighborhood. Emergency shelter idea is fine. I think it's great. It has to be by law. But as everyone says, why in my neighborhood nobody wants it in their neighborhood? And I do have an investment down here. I have had and been here for 30 years, and I can see nothing but everything detrimental to having something like this across the street from me.
I'm speaking with Ed Maxwell, partner in Eastern State Associates, which owns the building immediately adjacent to the proposed new location of the shelter. Ed, how do you feel about the move to the new location?
Well, I'm certainly in favor of the homeless being sheltered, but unfortunately, it's going to have a serious impact on our business. We're not going to be able to keep secretaries. The street right in front of us here is the path that many school children take to Columbus School, and they're going by at 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's a tremendous concern of the area residents about the the fact that the residents of the shelter will be discharged at 7 o'clock, and we'll be carrying drugs and weapons and so on while the school children are on their way to work and while our people are on their way to work here. And in general, it's going to have a very serious negative impact on our ability to do business here.
I've been working with them for years, and they're my friends. They're good people. They're good people who are suffering, and their suffering has to be tended to. It's as simple as that. We can't ignore them.
Who's right in this issue? That's a matter of personal priority. On Merritt Street in South Norwalk, this is Mike Lewis for SHU Community Magazine.
When Bishop Walter Curtis established Sacred Heart University over 21 years ago, his basic objective was to integrate the Sacred Heart family with the surrounding community. Well, within the university's social work program, that ideal is carried out on an almost daily basis. For you see, to graduate with a social work degree from here, a student must fulfill 3 semesters or approximately over 760 hours of volunteer community service. Now that may sound like a lot of free time, but as you're about to see, that time can be the most rewarding period for everyone involved. Meet Cindy Totten of Trumbull. She's a junior within the social work program, and she has secured her first placement within the Town of Trumbull Senior Outreach Program. One of Cindy's responsibilities includes the occasional visit to nearby senior citizen homes. I had the opportunity to sit and talk with Cindy and one of her most recent clients, 86-year-old Mr. Edward Bond.
My philosophy is, when I'm talking to older people, the trouble is they're selling the youth short today. You can't sell the youth short. They got the answers. And I'm so glad that Cindy wanted to do it.
I know I'm going to be learning a lot about social work itself and about outreach and about everything. So this is, I'll probably learn the most I'll ever learn this semester.
This is Luz Rodriguez, also a junior at Sacred Heart. Luz now works within the Human Services Department in the Westport Town Hall. I asked her supervisor, Mrs. Sue Jameson, about the advantage Luz serves for the Westport community.
She is going to make a connection for us with some of the Spanish-speaking families who aren't really aware we exist or that we have any ways that could help them. Get as much information as she can about them so that I would have that to refer back to in the future. She's really going to be our initial door into the Hispanic community in this area.
What benefits do you see from working in this kind of environment that will benefit your hopeful job in the future?
Well, I'm going to be getting a broader understanding of the welfare system and all the agencies, all the services they offer, and I'm going to get a great experience for when I go out in the real world.
I feel that the program has grown a great deal over the past few years. We've become...
Elaine Davis is a professor within the Sacred Heart University social work program.
It's a valuable program for students and the community. And when students go out into agencies, they often bring a lot of new ideas, a fresh view towards the work. And the agencies have also found it a very, very helpful program to have within their own piece of work that they're carrying out.
I'd also like to mention that of the 18 current social work interns, almost all of them hold a part-time job off campus, take a full course load here at school, and find the time for responsibilities at home. Well, that about does it for this edition of SHU Community Magazine. Please look for repeated broadcasts throughout the weeks until our next show, which will be completed the last week of March. We'd also appreciate any feedback you might have about the show, so please write us here at Sacred Heart University in care of the Media Studies Department, P.O. Box 6460, Bridgeport, Connecticut, 06606. For SHU Community Magazine, I'm Ken Januszewski. This program was directed by Rebecca Abbott, produced by Michael Ciccarelli, Annette Dexter, Ken Januszewski, Mike Lewis, Matthew Zahner, John Patterson, and Trish Tersani. Hi, my name is Ken Januszewski, and this is the second edition of SHU Community Magazine. If you missed our first show, well, let me tell you a little bit about ourselves. We are a group of students from Sacred Heart University here in Bridgeport, and once a month we produce a 30-minute news magazine covering various issues affecting southwestern Connecticut. Our objective is not to report on late-breaking events, but because our show comes out once a month, we are able to go into several stories in depth. One ongoing issue facing many urban Americans today is busing. In our first story, John Patterson looks into the latest developments of this issue in the city of Norwalk.
In June, the John D. McGrath Elementary School is closing to become the new home of Norwalk Community College. The 288 students currently attending McGrath are being assigned to the 4 surrounding elementary schools. Michael Muro is Norwalk's Assistant Superintendent of Schools in charge of planning and research. Why the McGrath plan? Why not townwide redistricting?
That question is often asked. First of all, the Board of Education made a commitment to the city to return the McGrath facility back to the city so that it could be used as the future site of NCC. The Norwalk Community College, as you know, has been looking for a home for some time. And it being adjacent to the Norwalk Technical School, it seemed to be the most logical place. So the Board of Education did vote to return it to the city, and in anticipation of that return, they had to consider the closing of McGrath. There are currently 288 children there. After all of the guidelines were established by the board, that is, whenever a school district is dismantled, the children have always been assigned to the contiguous districts, and in this case there are 4. The 288 children were assigned to Fox Run, Kendall, Jefferson, and Brookside. After examining the total enrollment as a result of that reassignment and also the racial percentage of the students, it was determined by the board that most of the schools would certainly be within their 10% parameter that they've set. The board felt that there was no need for a total-wide redistricting because one of the guidelines is let's try to minimize the disruptive effects. Let's minimize the number of children being reassigned. So therefore, the main thrust of this, of the amendment to the 1980 plan is basically the closing of McGrath with some related redistricting as what we call the ripple effect. So that's basically it. The board felt that why redistrict for the sake of redistricting? The main charge was to find a home for the McGrath students.
Beatrice Brown is a member of Norwalk School Board's Redistricting Desegregation Advisory Committee.
According to Tony Spinelli, the McGrath plan, Brown said, is piecemeal as far as redistricting is concerned. You want to elaborate on that for me?
Well, it is piecemeal because the Redistricting Advisory Committee has been asking, I guess, over 2 years to redistrict the whole city. And it hasn't been done. And every time we have to move some kids, it's piecemeal. And you disrupt children, and maybe somewhere down the line they might have to be moved again. So what I feel, and I guess I'm not speaking for the rest of the redistricting committee is, but I think they feel that it should be, the whole city should be redistricted, I mean, all at once, and get the pain over with everybody.
Betsy Bain is a member of Norwalk's Board of Education. What are multiple school assignments?
Well, there's certain areas in town where there is a heavy concentration of population and students, and they are primarily in the South Norwalk area in the housing projects, anywhere from 2 different schools for one project up to about 5 or 6, and that is really what is a multiple school assignment in Norwalk.
Okay, doesn't that put the burden of busing basically on the black children?
On the minorities, yes, unfortunately. In the past, when schools had to be closed, for one reason or another, the boards chose to close those schools that were in the inner cities or in the central portion of the city, whether it was because of the age of the buildings or because in years past people felt that cross-busing would not be acceptable.
Well, I still think the board should start right now, given the redistricting advisory committee the go-ahead to start redistricting the whole school system. And I think if they did that, you wouldn't have so much animosity about our kids being bused for the sake of desegregation plan. Because every time there's a school that's unbalanced or something, it's our kids that shift it around to make the school balanced, and this is unfair. I mean, we've been bused, our children have been bused for over 20 years, and now their kids are being bused, and pretty soon their grandkids are going to be bused. So somewhere down the line, there should come some fairness in it and equality for all of us, not just one segment of the community.
The McGrath redistricting plan came about to help make way for Norwalk Community College to place 288 children in elementary schools. The plan was designed to help maintain the racial balance of Norwalk's schools. John Patterson, SHU Community Magazine.
One educational program that has been instituted within the last 10 years has been the creation of regional children's museums. We visited the Fairfield Museum and discovered a unique, hands-on approach for developing a child's creative potential. This is what once was Grasmere Elementary School in Fairfield, and now is home to, among other things, the Children's Museum of Fairfield. Established in 1975 and located here since 1980, the Children's Museum is a healthy addition to many area children, providing them with a rich and vibrant insight into the world of creativity and imagination through the use of crafts and stories. Children learn by doing, and the things that they make here will teach them about their past and themselves, whether it be in the vast outreaches of outer space or a small colonial village in North America. What the children learn here will play a definite advantage in each child's future.
If we could consider each other a neighbor, a friend, or a brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful...
It's really a place where children come to make connections between their own life and the lives of other cultures, the lives within other cultures, or their own interests in a creative atmosphere. We really don't dwell on hard facts here. We try to have the children put themselves in the position of being the creator of something.
Ellen Schneider is the director of the Children's Museum, and she leads a competent staff of over 20 certified teachers from the surrounding community. How do you spur the creativity in the children?
Basically, it's just to kind of explore and learn, where they experience different kinds of situations and materials, and they kind of do that on their own with a little bit of stimulation from the teacher and their parents.
How old is your son?
7. The kids at this age, you know, they get bored with just sitting so long and just being able to participate.
We find that it's a lot more interesting and we can do a lot more things than at our regular school.
What sort of things?
Like you can make a lot more different kinds of crafts, and they have a lot more things out on the playground. That you can bake things, and there's not like work papers and things, and you don't have to do any work on like in your books and things like you have to do at normal school when you sit at your desk. When you go in the kitchen and you bake things.
When you study pilgrims, do you bake pilgrim things?
Yes, like cookies, like pilgrim cookies.
Excellent. All right, let's go see if we can make a nice little sign language.
They're encouraged to set a new environment, to create an imaginary environment around themselves, whereas in their daily schooling, they're very conscious of the fact that they're in school, they have books in front of them, they have papers that must be completed. Here we don't have that, so that we find that the children can blossom, they can grow.
For SHU Community Magazine, this is Matthew Zonner.
In our last issue, we looked into intra-city transportation in the greater Bridgeport area. In this show, Mike Lewis explores one of the dangers of intercity travel and the action being taken to make getting around southern Connecticut safer.
In the past year, 9 people have lost their lives in 5 accidents involving a failure of the metal median divider here on the Connecticut Turnpike. The most widely publicized occurred on October 2nd in Fairfield, where 4 died. In February of this year, 2 more were killed when a truck crossed the divider and struck their car head-on here in Westport. Following the collapse of the Mianus River Bridge in Greenwich and last year's problems with the Yankee Doodle Bridge in Norwalk, this failure of the metal median divider has caused the public outcry to make the turnpike safer for motorists. The State Department of Transportation is and has been involved in a program to upgrade and replace the current metal median divider with the Jersey barrier.
Mr. Don Levitt, Deputy Commissioner, Bureau of Highways from the Department of Transportation.
All right, the governor has instructed the commissioner to proceed with the installation of the Jersey barrier from Greenwich to New Haven and to do it within a 3-year construction season. And the governor has allocated $15 million in addition to the $7 million that was already allocated to install Jersey barrier commencing from Greenwich, where the present Jersey barrier is installed. We anticipate to complete the Jersey barrier from Greenwich to New Haven within the 3-year period.
How does the design of the barrier make it so superior to the metal guardrails?
Well, basically, your Jersey barrier is cement, and it's 32 inches high, and it's designed in such a fashion that when a car strikes it, or a wheel strikes it, it contains it into the same traveled lane and moves it along the Jersey barrier. In installing the Jersey barrier on the Connecticut Turnpike, it's got to, there's certain modifications that has to be made to the medium, because in the medium is all the drainage, and if you know the Connecticut Turnpike, the medium goes down like this. Now, I don't care whether it's the 15, the 20, or the 30-foot in round numbers medium, you still have it tapered in so that the water comes off the road and goes down into a drainage system. In order to put the Jersey barrier in, you would have to raise that up. Other than that, the Jersey barrier would sit lower than the grade of the road. So the principle behind putting the Jersey barrier in is to keep it just off the edge of the shoulder of the road, so that when a car starts to go off or a truck starts to go off, it then hits and commences to guide itself along the Jersey barrier. What you have out there today is an offset on the metal beam rail that when a car goes off of the road, it has a tendency to swerve down, and it doesn't continue it, and that's when you find that the metal beam rail is hit and it's bent in a lot of places. The Jersey barrier eliminates the question of constant repairs. The Jersey barrier, when it gets hit, it gets scraped. You'll see scrapes on them. You may see some chipping of the concrete or something along that line. But basically, it's kind of maintenance-free. And that's the good thing about the Jersey barrier.
This is the Jersey barrier, soon to replace the metal guardrails along I-95 here in Connecticut. The barrier is made out of reinforced concrete. It's approximately 32 inches tall and 30 feet in length. The biggest difference between the New Jersey barrier and the metal guardrail is the barrier's tapered design. It's approximately 2.5 feet at the bottom and tapers to a mere 8 inches or so at the top.
State Representative Christine Niedermeyer from Fairfield.
How many accidents have involved the median?
Well, in recent years, the most recent 3 years for which we have statistics for the Connecticut Turnpike, there have been over 10,000 accidents, of which about 1,700, or roughly 17%, have involved the median. And that's anything from accidents in which a truck or an automobile jumps the median, hits the median, collides with it, or actually breaks through the median to the other side. What's even more serious now is that the heavy volume of commercial traffic is really not prevented from crossing the median because it is metal and it is not the Jersey barrier, which is the strongest barrier that we can currently construct in order to prevent what is often very serious head-on collisions between trucks and automobile traffic coming the other way. So those of us who have tried to encourage highway safety on 95 believe this is one of the most important steps we can take to prevent those very serious head-on collisions and resulting fatalities.
Are there any further steps that can be taken to make I-95 a safer highway to drive on?
There are a number of things that we can do. The basic problem with the Connecticut Turnpike is that it's carrying a level of traffic far in excess of what the highway was originally built for. So we need to, number one, reduce some of the congestion on that highway. Department of Transportation is currently conducting a corridor study, which is basically a study of the entire southwestern corridor of the state to look for ways in which we can improve commuter traffic and other traffic on our highways. Things such as improving the entrances and exits on the Merritt Parkway will allow us to relieve some of the congestion on the Merritt. But there are a number of options that we're looking at, and I personally believe that unless we can encourage greater usage of mass transit, we're going to have a more difficult time because you're going to have a continued increase in congestion on the highways.
By the time that this project is finished, how much is it going to cost the taxpayers?
The cost to install concrete is much more expensive than most people realize. We already have a portion of the project that's been installed in the Greenwich-Stamford region, and the project calls for the installation of Jersey barriers all the way up to New Haven. The approximate remaining cost of that project is $95 million, which is a healthy sum of money. At the same time, those of us who have seen an increasing number of tragic accidents involving fatalities and serious injuries believe that when we're spending $5.5 billion for an infrastructure program, it's worth it to expend $95 million to help prevent the loss of further lives on what many people think is now almost a death trap, and that is the Connecticut Turnpike.
With an estimated cost of $1.5 million per mile and a total cost of $95 million for this year alone, the Connecticut taxpayer may feel the Jersey Barrier project exorbitant. But if these new barriers save just one life, this reporter feels that their cost will be justified. On the Connecticut Turnpike for SHU Community Magazine, this is Mike Lewis.
A visit to the zoo offers the public an opportunity to see wildlife up close. Annette Dexter looks into the current financial straits of the Beardsley Park Zoo.
The Beardsley Park Zoo is the only zoo in the state. It has been owned and operated by the city of Bridgeport since it opened in 1922. It has been enjoyed by visitors from all over Connecticut, yet it has never had state funding. Now, for the first time, state funding is being requested to improve living conditions for the animals at the Beardsley Park Zoo.
Richard Porto, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Where are the funds coming from?
Well, we've applied to the state for funding. Since our existence, the state has never, contributed. I shouldn't say contribute. No one has ever applied to the state. We are the only major zoo in Connecticut, and we're featured as a point of interest in all the Connecticut books. So we just felt, in the sake of culture and what have you, we would try to start at least getting some type funding by applying through the legislators through the state of Connecticut. And the rest we hope would, this would be the nucleus, obviously. If we turn around and get some money from the state, the private fundraising would hopefully take over and industry would get involved. When I see things happening, it's a lot easier to start getting the money when it has momentum and they see there's a commitment on the city's part and the state's part.
Senator Lee Scarpetti, Republican, Bridgeport.
Is the bill having a rough time getting through the Senate?
Well, before it gets to the Senate, it has passed the environment. It goes before the Environment Committee, which it already has done. It is now going to go before the Finance Committee. Hopefully it'll pass the Finance Committee, then it'll get to the House and the Senate. And we are hoping that it'll pass. It seems, if we can get it past Finance, it looks good.
Greg Dancho, Director of the Zoo.
Can you tell me why the zoo needs additional funding?
Well, right now, the zoo needs additional funding because we were built in a time when zoos were in vogue with a lot of people, a lot of cities. And right now, we have a lot of places that need renovation. Renovation is what we really need the funds for now. We really don't want to build new and exciting exhibits. We want to renovate what we have first to make sure our animals are kept in the best possible condition. There's two areas that really need the most work. right now, and that is the hoofstock area, which is back up that way with the bison, the elk, the llama. That area has been eroded for quite a while. All the animals are in great shape right now. The animals are, well, actually all the time our animals are in good shape. We have a very fine collection of animals. However, the exhibits are the contention that I have. The exhibits are not naturalistic. The exhibits are not, well, they're big enough actually, but it's just not a modern zoo. It's not your modern look to the zoo.
Wildlife kept in captivity for our educational and recreational use deserve to have the best possible living conditions. This is not the case at the Beardsley Park Zoo. Only state funding will make this type of environment a reality. This is Annette Dexter for SHU Community Magazine.
The heart of any city is its downtown. Our next story covers redevelopment in downtown Bridgeport.
Downtown Bridgeport has been a focal point for renewed interest in redevelopment. After many years of broken promises and false starts, the downtown area shows steady progress towards regaining a once prominent position as a center for commerce and hopefully more of a cultural attraction. Downtown Bridgeport is the setting for the second of a three-part story, Bringing Bridgeport Back. The major catalyst for change in the downtown seems to be construction of a 9-story Hotel Bridgeport Plaza. Upon completion late this year, the hotel will employ over 200 people from the area. The hotel will also boost the city's tax roll, but more important, pump an estimated $5 million into the local economy. We spoke to several city officials about how downtown redevelopment fits into the city's master plan. Thomas Kinney of the city's Economic Development Office.
We see kind of a changing trend here for the city of Bridgeport, away from kind of the basic kind of industries, you know, your machine tool type of industry, more into the kind of the service type industry. So we have focused a lot of our attention in trying to get something stimulated in our downtown.
We have to work on local advocacy.
Lucy Farrell, the city director of the Downtown Council, pinpoints one obstacle in the path of downtown development.
Enough of that, and people should really start dealing with the reality of what's happening. We have the Richard Meyer building to look forward to that Peoples is committed to, and we have the new hotel that is under construction regardless of the naysayers who said it would never happen. It is now a reality. We have what was called the Justice Building, which is now going to be called 100 Fairfield Avenue. The plan addresses commercial buildings as well as residential buildings, so that we get a mix of people and spaces. It's important to bring people and have life and vitality in the downtown area.
And the mayor of Bridgeport, Leonard Paoletta.
With all due deference to your viewers who may take a ride downtown today and say, well, I don't see a thing happening. We say you're absolutely right, but we're saying in a few more months, you're going to see a lot of those things coming out of the ground and happening so that they will be visible. We can only tell you what the plans are, what the realities are. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time between the end of the planning stage and the beginning of the bricks and mortar stage.
Other than the large construction jobs being done here, area contractors have taken it upon themselves to preserve the fine architecture which distinguished Bridgeport as a center of commerce during the Industrial Revolution. The old UI building on the corner of Broad and Cannon Street was recently renovated by the law firm of Cohen & Wolfe. We spoke to Mr. Austin Wolfe about his hopes for Bridgeport's future.
It will come back. It started to come back, and one of the great problems in dealing with the redevelopment here is the unfortunate perspective that some people have and repeat as to what it's like, which is simply not true. There's nothing wrong with the area. It's a good area, and it has developed. It will continue to develop, and we're so sure that we put ourselves here and our money here.
Next door to the offices of Cohen & Wolfe on Broad Street is the Lafayette Building. It is one of several renovation projects underway by local general contractor Philip Kuchma.
Yes, we like to stick with as close to what the original design of the building was. As for instance, with the Lafayette Building, the architect, which was Antonazzi Associates, had photographs of what the original building looked like. And we removed the facade, which had been put on years back and have tried to restore it to look as close to the original as it can. We currently are working on a building at 300 Fairfield Avenue, which we're renovating. The Bridgeport Arts Council will be using space on the first floor, and the upper floors are apartments. That building is just being started, but is a building that was built in 1876 and is going to be a major restoration of the facade to keep it as original as possible.
Another completed project done by Kuchma is the old post building on Cannon Street.
We've renovated it now for office use, and there is some possible retail space on the arcade side of the building, which right now can be used for either offices or retail. But we redesigned some of the building had been bastardized so that there would be some more contemporary things done to it. And what we did was we removed that and brought it back to look more like it had been built back in 1892. So I believe that the vitality of the city has to be geared around people that live in the city, so that at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, the city doesn't more or less close up and there's nobody around. In order for restaurants or service shops or any of those businesses to survive, they have to do it with more than just the business people that come in from 8 to 5. There have to be residences downtown, and I think it's very important that more be developed.
Bridgeport is its people, and of the residents and merchants we spoke to, a majority expressed optimism for Bridgeport's future.
This should have been done many years ago when Trumbull started. They should have been starting a long time ago. We're behind the date on it, but I'm seeing some improvements now in my time, and I think there's only one way to go here. It's up.
It's going to make a lot of more jobs for people, too. I hope I get me a job.
Are there any proposals that will benefit merchants such as yourself?
I think that housing that they wanted to put up would be very beneficial, because you have a nucleus to work for with people living here. In a downtown area, you're still getting people from the city itself. You're not getting people from the outskirts. So if they build housing, it would be a big benefit.
Something that Bridgeport was long overdue for, and it's going to be the next growing city in the southern Connecticut, a miniature Stanford.
It ain't like the old times. Now everything is out for themselves, and they're forgetting about the great Bridgeport. They used to be one of the nicest places in Connecticut. Bring people to downtown, that's what we need.
Redevelopment progress is happening here in the downtown. But for this progress to carry over to the rest of the city, the downtown has to set the pace. In our final segment of Bringing Bridgeport Back, we'll cover several of the remaining areas of Bridgeport. These include the West End, North Bridgeport, and Black Rock. For SHU Community Magazine, this is Trish Trisani.
Well, that about does it for this edition of SHU Community Magazine. We only have one more show for this season, so if you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please write to us at Sacred Heart University in care of the Media Studies Department, P.O. Box 6460, Bridgeport, Connecticut, 06606. For SHU Community Magazine, I'm Ken Januszewski. This program was directed by Rebecca Abbott, produced by Michael Ciccarelli, Annette Dexter, Ken Januszewski, Mike Lewis, John Patterson, Trish Tersani, and Matthew Zahner. Hi, my name is Ken Januszewski, and this is SHU Community Magazine. Since this is our last show for the spring season, we've added an extra half-hour of programming for you. We will be back in the fall, though, covering more stories concerning southwestern Connecticut. And watch for repeated broadcasts of this show and our prior show in the upcoming weeks right here on this channel. Earlier on this year, the Westport Center for the Arts had an open house. It prompted me to do this next story.
are becoming a center here for all kinds of creative activity. And we're drawing more and more on the people in the community who apparently need a focal point, culturally speaking.
And it's nice to have a studio within a center like this where you are working among other artists or where other artists are around.
I don't like to say, be in a position where I say, well, I don't know what I would do if we were to lose the center, but I am in that position. It's just everything is positive about the space.
John Dykes, along with 45 other area artists, is a working resident of the Westport Center for the Arts. Located in the former Greens Farm School since 1983, the center is currently awaiting a decision for a proposed 5-year extension on their lease. Foregoing the charged emotions that obviously surround such an issue, our cameras recorded the words and activities of 3 resident artists and several community programs the center provides, such as this lunchtime concert featuring Richard Orante and Natalie Richna Maynard.
I'm a freelance illustrator, so I'm working mostly for magazines. Right now I'm not working on anything in particular, so I'm able to use this space to loosen up and experiment and do things that are just for me, more like on a fine art basis rather than a commercial art.
John also gives his time to visiting students from the Westport area. The Young People's Creative Arts Series has given hundreds of students, like David, an opportunity to experience the work world of the resident artists and even participate in the creative process.
I'm putting myself in his position and saying, well, I was interested in drawing when I was his age, and if I were able to come into this kind of situation and talk with an artist somebody who was doing something that I thought I wanted to get into, I would have done anything for it.
Well, I've been here a year and a half.
Robin Fairclough is an experimental painter working primarily in oils and acrylics.
I have a part-time job. I do a lot of freelance work to help me pay for this rent, for the rent here. And since November, I've been working on a series of self-portraits. I also work with flowers. I do flower design, freelancing, so I have a lot of flowers in my studio. They influence me quite a bit. And it's great here. This is really why I'm here in Westport, because of the studio.
Robin also serves the community as a representative from the center. Once a week, she visits a group of special education students at Coleytown Elementary School in Westport.
I was involved with that in college, so it kind of brought that part of myself back into play. So it's nice to, get in touch with that again. Like my art, I just kind of need it. I like to put that out. So it's helped me just feel more complete, I guess.
You can't think art. You have to do it.
Herzl Emanuel has been with the center since its inception. His sculptures are in the permanent collection of the Metropolitan Museum, the Rose Museum, and the University of Miami, just to name a few.
You see, an artist is not really a profession in the strict sense of the word.
Yeah.
Economically, it's Alice in Wonderland. We never know from one day, 1 month, 1 year to another whether we'll sell anything. Here I am working on stuff that I don't know when or if I'll sell it.
Yeah.
See? So economically, it's a very uncertain thing. Now, this wonderful idea came into being, the Westport Center for the Arts, to provide artists with a working space that is somehow within striking distance of the economic reality. And the word has gotten around here by very irresponsible and not always well-intentioned people that somehow we aren't paying any rent, that we're here on a, it's a ball. But it isn't. We all pay rent here. And some people pay more than I do. It's all based on the economics of individual people. It's also based on the fact of living here in Westport as opposed to living somewhere outside the community. There is a slight differential. So for me, it has been a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver. I used to come here from Rome visiting and so on, and not have any place to work. So all the time I was here was lost insofar as my creative output is concerned. Now I have a place here, and I don't know what would happen if I had to leave.
The Westport Center for the Arts is not just artists and lunchtime concerts. Other community events open to the public include film festivals, lecture series, and group forums. The center also houses the Theater Artists Workshop. Some of the more well-known members include Keir DeLay, Shirley Knight, Lee Richardson, and Theodore Pical. Of the 160 members and 20 apprentices that make up the workshop membership, all are proven professionals coming from every aspect of the theatrical arts. The workshop, like an artist studio, is a place of group practice, personal experimentation, and peer feedback. There's a lot that goes on within the Westport Center for the Arts, some of it benefiting the community, some the art world. But most important, the center provides a place for the independent artists to expand their own creative potential.
Michael Ciccarelli followed the late season play of the Sacred Heart University women's softball team, and he filed this next report.
It's springtime once again, when people's thoughts turn to ones of fancy. That is, except for an exceptionally talented group of young ladies here at Sacred Heart University, where their thoughts turn to baseball, or more specifically, ladies softball. To find out exactly what's happening with ladies softball here at the Heart, we talked to Coach Pete Diorio.
Well, my name is Pete Diorio. I'm the coach of the women's softball team at Sacred Heart University. In our sixth season of softball this year, 1985, we're probably enjoying our most success. It's our biggest schedule, and to date we have played 34 games, and our record is 31-3. We started our season off by going to Florida, and our Florida trip proved to be very successful as we finished with a 9-2 record. Both losses coming to Division I teams, Iowa State from the Big 8 and the University of South Florida. And then we reversed both those losses by beating both those teams. We returned home to an abbreviated northern schedule and then went to Virginia, where we competed in the Lady Flames Invitational, which was made up of Division I teams, Virginia Commonwealth, University of Virginia, University of North Carolina, Georgia State, and ourselves. In this tournament, we won 6 games and lost 1 and captured the title, and had 3 players make the all-31st team, pitchers Debbie Tidy, pitcher Gail Holznagel, and shortstop Elizabeth Lucky.
My name is Gail Holznagel, and I'm a junior at Sacred Heart University. I love it here. I like to, you know, it's tough getting used to Pete Diorio, that's for sure. But I like it. This team is good. They're real good. And I really love to play. I transferred from Southern, number 1, to play for a better softball team, and number 2, to get a better education.
We have now started our New England College Conference season, and we have played 12 games in the conference with 2 games left, and we are 12-0, all 12 games being shutouts. We are ranked number 1 in the Northeast, and we are ranked nationally number 4. Elizabeth Lucky is hitting at a 421 clip with 6 doubles, 6 triples, and 5 home runs, and she has 29 RBIs.
My name is Elizabeth Lucky. I'm a senior here at Sacred Heart, and I play shortstop. Well, the shortstop is out there, usually takes charge of the infield and tells the outfield the outs and keeps everyone up and tells them, you know, what to do on each certain plays. And I just try to do that, take charge. It's hard to stay up for the games because we play a lot better when we play Division I teams and teams that give us good competition. But we got to go out there and do the job and get the runs and have the pitching. Got to win.
Who was it that taught you to hit so good?
I guess my father had a lot to do with it. He always worked with me. And my brothers, I had a lot of 3 brothers, so they helped me out.
We've been very fortunate here at Sacred Heart in having 2 outstanding All-American pitchers. And Debbie Tidy, a sophomore, made first-team All-American last year. She is currently 18 wins and 1 loss with 4 no-hitters and pitching to a 0.00 earned run average. She has not given up an earned run all season.
I've learned a lot now, from last year, and I've learned lots this year, and I keep on learning. But I think, overall the whole team's going to go a long ways, and I myself have come a long way. Knowing that the team's, able to hit the ball when they can, and they come through at the right times. And, right from the start of the game, I know that we are capable of getting those runs and those hits that we need. So it takes that little bit of pressure off me, which helps a great deal.
Well, we're hitting the ball a lot better this year. How does that affect your pitching?
Oh, God, does that help a lot. Oh, boy, thank God, because I know we can get runs in the first inning. I love it. Oh, God, it helps out a lot.
Anyone can understand the way I feel. Oh, put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Look at me. I can be and feel. Well, I spent some time in the Mudfield night, watching it from the fence. I took some lumps when the mighty case dug out. So say, hey, Willie, tell the cow, and Joe DiMaggio, don't say it ain't so, the time is now. Oh, put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Look at me. I can feel and feel.
Any predictions for Sacred Heart this year?
Hopefully the national championship.
With a record of 46-4 and convincing wins in the New England Regionals over American International College and C.W. Post, the Sacred Heart ladies look assured of going to the national finals in California. For the Sacred Heart Community Magazine, this is Mike Ceccarelli.
I had the opportunity to work on this next story profiling the current state of hip-hop in the Bridgeport area.
Awesome. If you're at all familiar with the sights and sounds of the city, you may have seen this, or this, or this, or this. But how does it all fit together? It's part of an emerging urban culture, hip-hop. Curious about the hip-hop scene around Bridgeport, I contacted Tom Parrott of the Superior Crush Breakers. He became my guide into the hip-hop scene.
One thing you should know is that it's kind of central to this that you can't really discuss is Africa Bambaataa, sort of the person who started the whole hip-hop philosophy. He had been a gang leader himself, but his homeboy, meaning his best friend, was killed. And so he said, this is enough of this. This is worthless. It's not getting us anywhere. So he started what he called the Zulu Nation, which was at first just a group of kids that wanted to break dance, write graffiti, and rap, do things that were positive rather than form a gang and go around fighting and stealing or whatever. Flashdance had come out. I mentioned that movie a lot because that film, even though it wasn't a very good movie in any real sense, it was the first time that most of America, mainstream America, got a good look at breakdancing for the first time. It was only like a 2-minute scene with a Rocksteady crew in the park breaking, but that was the scene that was responsible for kicking off the breakdance craze.
continuously. It's faster, it's quicker. Popping is more coordinated. It's flexing. Like you gotta have reflex. That's popping. And timing and break, they spin, do all that head spinning.
Yeah, see, the breaking is more like a combination of dance and gymnastics, but the roots of popping come from mime, you know, but they've made it different. It's not exactly the same as mime anymore. It's more rhythmic, you know, more of a dance, but I'm sure you can see some of the similarities.
We all have a goal to be in the movie someday and, you know, really do it for a profession.
I also contacted the Electric Body Rockers, another established Bridgeport group.
Or the wave, demonstrate the wave. You got it.
The Electric Body Rockers practice daily, hoping their many hours of work will result in success.
I want to make it to the movie. Popping in the streets has gotten old-fashioned now. See, and now popping together, choreographed routines is something new that's starting. Only a few crews in Bridgeport are still dedicated enough to practice it. You have to use a lot of imagination and be creative. If you can't think of anything new to amaze anyone, I guess it's time to quit.
Like a lot of kids have a lot of anger and frustration built in them, and instead of taking it out by destroying things, they do graffiti. In a way, it's destroying things, but in a way, it's releasing up all this energy, which could be, you know, expended by just stealing, wrecking places, you know, burning things down.
What about this guy over here? What might that mean?
That's just the b-boy. It's the way, well, the artist who did it is the way he sees the rest of society and the way he sees the rest of his fellow b-boys and the way they are out in the street. Strong, dominant. They kind of like rule over everything in their own way. They try to talk out into society by using these pictures.
Mainstream society only panders to the tastes of the middle class in the suburbs. You can tell that by the way families are depicted on TV shows, what kind of groups get their videos shown on MTV. And this says that you can't forget us. You know, you don't see us in everyday life because we're in areas that are far away from mainstream society. Nobody goes here unless they live here. You know, but they've had, out of necessity, have had to ignore mainstream society and make their own art forms because, you know, hip-hop is their own music for them. Breaking is their own dance style. Graffiti art is their own artwork. It's all about pride.
Our last stop in the hip-hop scene is rapping. Among the rappers I spoke with were the Superior Crush.
What me and Sean's trying to do is, you know, create a little something for the younger kids to, you know, stay out of the streets and, you know, go to a party that we throw, you know, come on down to the party, enjoy themselves, you know, instead of being out here busting somebody's car window, breaking in the car, you know, or something like that. What we're trying to create is, you know, a new outlook for the younger people, so when they come up, they can say, well, Superior Crush taught us this, you know, and the best thing we got out of it was seeing them, you know, perform, you know, their God-gifted talent. You know.
Teaspoon, my cool big brother. Get on the mic like there's no other.
It's the ace to the base, way down in your face. The sucker MCs in the place, got the finesse. Got to be the very best with the coolest chest. Give your own slick dick to the number nonetheless. Cause I'm the man to the hour, all sweet, never sour. I'm coming to the top, to the tip of the beat. Cause they ain't no lower than the teaspoon should be.
Hip-hop reaches out to the teenagers. It draws them in. Take them off the streets. Stop all that junk they're doing out there. Find themselves in life.
Cause I'm bad, I'm the bad, and I am here to crush all the rhyme and devastate your ear. Make your heart beat, trim, go shiver and shake. On every little word I say through the break, cause I'm cool as
But I am
say what?
when I leave your bus to tear my dear, because you know when I leave, you never receive rhymes tough as this that you best believe.
So put it all together, the brothers are forever on top, number one, just having fun.
All you dirt MCs who want to get some,
don't start no act, there won't be none.
Cause when Flash cuts the record, the people thrive on this show. It hits to make the crowd live and win it.
Hands move back and forth, it's demonstrates the meaning of going off.
See you later.
Like, take for instance, all right, we wrote a rhyme on, like, you know, how we had so much problems, like, you know, holding us back. And then went something like this right here. Couldn't even lay back to sit and relax. We had to wreck our brains to cut some wax. Now comes gig time, my throat is sore. Who would think weeks later we'll be on a tour? From New York to Paris, Tokyo to France, every place we hit, we left a new chant guaranteed to make the young and old all dance, singing cries of the city. You know, that's the way we go about creating things, seeing like, we can see like someone get whooped up on the streets or whatever. We go home, like, you know, thinking like, you know, well, how could we explain this right here in rap detail, like, you know, about what's going on in the area, you know? I had a relative, you know, he was a cousin. You know, he got into drugs pretty bad. That's what started me back then, you know, and I was trying, my first rap was about drugs, you know, please try to get off the drugs, you know. The thing was, to me, was, if I can help somebody else get off it, you know, and not go what he went through, hey, I'll be happy. You know what I mean? That's my main concern of being in rap. You know? If I can't get a message across, I no longer want it no more.
Tina spins records for lunchtime crowds at Sacred Heart University's cafeteria. She mixes some of her favorite rap tunes with contemporary rock and roll.
As a DJ at a local college, I run into a lot of problems where the people don't like the rap music. Well, I think it's more that they don't understand what it's about, and they just don't hear enough of it. They're not brought up around it. It depends on what area you're from. Like, I'm from Stanford. It's close to New York, and the schools out in Stanford, I mean, everybody's got their box. I mean, all different colors. You know, it's just not the black people. So a lot of the white kids too. Rap has a lot of psychological things, like they brag and they boast a lot on this and on that, because it's a psychological uplift to get them to help them to forget everything, you know, the problems and everything in the ghetto.
We hear like tonal distinctions in different beats, you know, where to other people it just sounds like a lot of beats, you know, but they're not hearing, you know, they want to hear like a guitar part or something like that, but it's not going to be there, you know. But all these things are late because a lot of graffiti writers are also breakers, or maybe they're MCs, you know, they all kind of tie in with each other because of that, you know, because of what I said. But if you go to a party, you know, you'll see people breaking, you'll hear rappers, you'll see DJs. Maybe some people put up a graffiti mural behind the MCs or something like that. You know, it's just the way everyone decides to express themselves.
Unfamiliar culture is a difficult thing to grasp. Before starting this story, I was intrigued yet confused by the seemingly monotonous rhythms and erratic body motions of hip-hop. But after opening myself to its foundations and cultural messages, I recognize its place as art in popular culture. In the last 10 minutes, we've seen the energy of breaking, the illusion of poppin', the color of graffiti, and we've heard the message of rap. I've learned from this story the only way to understand any culture is to open yourself to it. For SHU Community Magazine, I'm Annette Dexter.
A new clinic has opened up its doors in the Bridgeport area of late with the express purpose of helping to determine the sex of your unborn child. John Patterson investigated this next report.
Men and women have been trying for centuries to determine the sex of their children. Aristotle proposed that if you make love in the north wind, you'd have a male child, and if you make love in the south wind, you'd be more likely to have a female child. In 1960, Dr. Landrum Shettles proposed that the alkalinity or acidity of the female reproductive tract would have an effect on gender. In 1973, Ronald Erickson unveiled his technique for sex selection, which involves semen separation. In June, Dr. Anthony Santamura of Bridgeport will begin using the Erickson technique in his Main Street office. Santamura explains.
Basically, what is done during the procedure of sex determination is we interview couples, and then we determine when the most likely time that the egg is passing from the ovary into the tube, and this is the time of ovulation. And at that point in time, when we feel that a patient is very close to this ovulation, we bring the husband in, and the husband produces a sperm specimen, semen specimen, and then this specimen is passed through various layers of human serum albumin. And this passage through the various layers allows a separation of male from female sperm. The separation is, there are approximately 85 to 90% male sperm in the final product. Then this final product, which incidentally the sperm are not exposed to any toxic chemicals, they're all normal substances and physiologic chemicals, not even chemicals, physiologic body substances. The final product, all right, which we call an enriched fraction, okay, is then placed back in the female in the form of an insemination, actually using her husband's own sperm. The average conception or pregnancy occurs with about 3 attempts, and the sex selection process runs approximately $400 a month. What basically is being done here is shifting the odds, increasing the incidence of having a male infant from 50% to 80%. Most people who are interested in our particular society in antenatal sex determination are interested in having a balanced family in the United States. People want a boy and a girl. If you already have a girl, they want a boy, and if they already have a boy, they want a girl. There are very few people, in fact, Dr. Erickson's survey of a vast number of patients showed that of the people coming in for sex determination in advance, only about 0.5% were coming for their first child. Almost everyone else was coming to balance their family out. And in the United States, oddly enough, it seems that the size of the family tends to determine family size more than actually the composition of the sex of the family.
I spoke with biologist Hope Adams, who worked as a genetic counselor with Landrum Shuttles at the New York Fertility Research Foundation, about sex predetermination.
I'm concerned about method failure if a couple goes through the kinds of ethical choices that they have to make and determine that they want a girl for whatever reason. And the method fails, and currently we're talking about 80% success rate. What happens when 20% of those couples have a child that's not of their choosing? Are they angry? Do they deny the child? Do they raise the child differently?
Sex selection is a novelty at this point. There seems to be little worry that the Erickson technique will have any noticeable effect on world populations, considering the limited scope of the operation. But only time is going to tell whether or not sex selection becomes commonplace in family planning. John Patterson, SHU Community Magazine.
Mike Quick now takes us on a more lighthearted approach to the nation's #1 pastime.
For over 8 months now, the Little League fields in our area have been deserted and the bleachers empty. But now it's springtime, and that means once again Little League baseball is in full swing. Little Leaguers must go through practice like all baseball players. These young boys and girls practices started over a month ago and look more like a comedy hour than a baseball game.
And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. But where it's going, no one knows. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. But where it's going, no one knows. On his arm, little skin-tight vision. What a watch, she admires, she is hissing. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. But where it's going, no one knows. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. But where it's going, no one knows.
First time, I was the first person in the whole league to make to mess up the game. And I was really mad, and I thought my coach was going to yell at me. But he taught me that I shouldn't be so upset.
Now, kids make errors. Heck, you know, there are people getting paid $90 million an inning, and they make errors. So you got to expect it from 9 to 12-year-olds. And the most important thing you can instill in the kid is there's another play coming right up, and it's not the end of the world to make an error. Everybody makes errors of commission. The ones that bother me are the errors of omission. They forget where to throw to a base, especially when you know that they should remember that. Those I'll talk to the kid on. The others, I'll just try and encourage them that the next play, you're going to make it.
When I was playing in my game, I was making an error, and my coach said I had butterflies in my
Sure, these young kids have butterflies, as do all ball players at one time or another. But as opening day lurks just around the corner, these little leaguers are now making the plays they only dreamed of a month ago.
Drills it to right field. It's way back. Going, gone, goodbye.
Let's get excited.
First game. It's one of the most exciting things in my life. To know that I accomplished something in that league. It's a great feeling, really. And then you get out there and it's not so bad at all.
The best thing about Little League is when you get on base and the coach says you can steal. There's nothing like a good game getting dirty. Once I get off that base, I'm gone.
So what happens to little leaguers when they depart from their leagues? Some no longer play. Others join various leagues, and some even further their baseball playing days by joining high school and college teams. Did Little League help these high school and college players? Well, let's see what they think.
I think Little League baseball helped me to, be competitive and helped me with fundamentals of baseball, like, batting and throwing and fielding, etc., all that.
I'd say Little League's a positive experience for everyone. It's really learning the game. Winning shouldn't be important at the time.
I think it's a lot of fun. It's where it's where you pick up the basics of baseball.
Little League was really terrific. Helped you a lot out, the basics of baseball, about hitting and fielding, You didn't really want to win. You just wanted to learn how to play the game.
One boy we had playing shortstop years ago, we called him Johnny Ghost because he was so fast. And now I see he's playing for McMahon, and he's going in as a pinch hitter, pinch runner, and heck, he played for me. And now I see him playing high school ball, and that's a big thrill to me. There's a number of them coming out of this league that I see playing high school ball, and I follow them very closely because I can remember them when. And really, that's another thing that makes it worthwhile here.
I think Little League baseball gives kids a start. We can start playing organized ball, so they have a jump on the kids who the first time they play is in high school. So I feel like I played varsity in front of a lot of kids because I had the fundamentals already taught to me.
Most of all, helped me with my pitching because my coach, usually took me over to the side and helped me throw, how to, basic pitching forms and stuff like that.
It gave me a good background. I learned a lot of stuff, a lot of skills, learned how to really hit well. Over the years, I've done really well. Right now, I'm pitching for Sacred Heart University baseball team.
This is Gerald Anastasia, varsity baseball coach at Central Catholic High School.
Yeah, Little League baseball, I feel, is very good for the kids. They work on their basic and their fundamentals, and that's very important at that age. And it's a good age to work with because that's all you have to worry about with that age is the fundamentals and the basics. And the that makes things a lot easier for the coach and for the players. As when you go into high school on that level, there's a lot more things to worry about because you got to worry about the kids academically and outside of school. So Little League Baseball and the guys that come, they volunteer to work, they do a fine job, and I encourage it 100%.
I don't know whether any of the kids that are playing in this league will ever make it to the major leagues, but they have made it to the high school ball, and probably some of them will get college scholarships. And you know, I just wish them a world of luck. Even the kids that played against me and beat our team, they're still part of our little league, and that makes them kind of family.
Maybe these little leaguers will never make it to the majors, but they learn the game, and some will indeed play high school and college ball and may become a hero one day by scoring their team's big run.
You're sitting home on a Sunday afternoon, not doing much of anything, stuff in your face, watching the tube. Why don't you come out and support Little League Baseball? You know, these guys could really use your support, and you'll feel better that you came out and helped this youth of our community.
Trish Trusani has the last of her three-part report, Bringing Bridgeport Back.
The final segment of Bringing Bridgeport Back covers the west end and the south end of Bridgeport. These two areas fit in well with the city's overall redevelopment plan. I spoke to Reverend Snyder, pastor of the First Evangelical Lutheran Church on Laurel Avenue. He described a grassroots organization which is working to improve their neighborhood.
I'm with the West End Community Action Now group called We Can, which started about 2 years ago. And it's had a fairly good history for the 2 years, I think, dealing with bulk trash and the block watch programs and a number of other issues of concern. Most of the issues that affect us are really not separate from the rest of the city, and so in fact do affect the rest of the city. As with every neighborhood, there are key people, and those key people see the need and the usefulness, and they are very much involved, and we see more and more people, you know, attaching on in specific things, if not in the whole process.
And do the people show an interest in, you know, bettering their neighborhood?
Yeah, they do. They do. You know, a lot of people clean up and do stuff that they really ain't supposed to do, but they try to do whatever they're going to do.
It might change if everybody gets together and start picking up everything like they're supposed to. Have, you know, Bridgeport be a cleaner place.
Located in the south end of Bridgeport are many structures built in Victorian times. They represent Bridgeport's prosperous past, and their renovation symbolizes Bridgeport's current growth. I spoke to Charles Young, chairman of the Gateway to the Sound project. This project is going to restore Park Avenue to the way it looked at the turn of the century.
We're working right now on Gateway to the Sound, which is a plan that was initiated by our Business Industry Council and another group called Friends of Seaside Park and a community organization, Seaside Village Association. They felt that Park Avenue is one of the most beautiful avenues in Bridgeport, and they felt that it would do a lot for the city if we did some beautification over here. The general objective is to, number one, beautify this area, and number two, to create an atmosphere where you have the city, the private sector, and the community working together to beautify Bridgeport, to create some sort of pride in our city. For a long time, we've had problem with the image of our city, and we found that we needed to do something to try to get people excited about our city and motivated to do things to improve our appearance.
Charles Brovich is the Director of Neighborhood Housing Services for the south end of Bridgeport.
This building was one of the biggest eyesores in the neighborhood. It was last occupied in the middle 1960s by the Bridgeport Herald newspaper. Windows were all smashed out, there were tremendous structural problems, and it seemed to most people that the only solution would be to tear it down. We got the building registered on the National Register of Historic Places. Finally, there was a group that had done another building successfully, an old school, that decided to take this project on. It will benefit the neighborhood primarily by not looking like it did before, with smashed out windows and just a real sign that the south end was on the skids. Tentative plans at this point are to turn it into a mixed-use building with office space, residential space, and commercial space. There's talk of putting in a bank and a French restaurant and a few other things.
Mr. Brilvich and I toured the Barnum-Palliser Historic District.
Most people would have looked at this 3 or 4 years ago and just thought it was another Bridgeport rundown neighborhood. We realized it was something special. Researching the history, we found out that in 1883, P.T. Barnum contracted with an architectural firm by the name of Palliser & Palliser, which was nationally and even internationally renowned, to design elegant, stylish, working-class housing. They came up with a plan. Instead of building little tiny cottages, you put 2 houses together and build a duplex. You only have to build 1 foundation instead of 2, and 3 walls instead of 4, and roof costs are less, and you take the money that you save and use it on very nice architectural embellishment. A lot of people have an idea that historic preservation, quote-unquote, is for rich people that live in the suburbs, and they come in and gentrify an area. Behind me here, we've got a couple of really good quality restorations that were done by Bridgeport people on a shoestring. The End House family moved out of Father Panic Village and realized that they could create 4 very nice restored duplex apartments and live just about rent-free. People's reaction when they drive by and see a house like this is, where did that house come from? We never saw that before. And that's the kind of thing that's really inspired people about the South End, that this is a neighborhood with a lot of spirit, one that's really on the way back.
I'm totally into the renovation of the area. I'm renovating this property here in the process of getting the property next door here.
I think it's a beautiful city without the problems that it has. And I think eventually it'll become what it is, what it has always been.
Back to what?
Not so much to go back to tradition, because you always evolve, you go into the future, but to keep back a little bit of the past. You know, it's like roots.
We've seen evidence that residents of the West End have taken action to improve and maintain their neighborhood. We've also seen that South End residents have taken the initiative to improve and maintain their homes and major thoroughfares, many of which date to the 19th century. The rise of community action groups in these parts of Bridgeport seems to counter charges of apathy that have been made against the people of the city. This grassroots approach is just a continuation of similar endeavors we've seen taking place throughout the city. Throughout our 3-part story, we've seen a genuine interest displayed by the people of Bridgeport in revitalizing their city. An effort is being made to maintain a balance between government and the private sector in completing a common goal. That goal is to bring Bridgeport back and transform the city into an enduring economic, commercial, and cultural metropolis. For SHU Community Magazine, this is Trish Trisani.
The director of our program, Rebecca Abbott, ventured down to the Klein Memorial in Bridgeport several weeks ago to record the sights and sounds of the Little Miss Venus contest. She also put together this next musical piece.
Just slowly, make a turn, and that's it. And then we'll ask you to walk back off again. Then when you walk off, the chaperones will get you in the line numerically, and then we'll bring you back on in the groups of 10. Chaperones, will you come up in front, chaperones? Come up here a little bit. Let's get these. Here, would you take these, and we got to give them to these numbers, right? This group. Here, give those out right now. Well, I'll tell you. Wait till I give you the numbers. Oh, this is another figure. I gave you 21. I just gave you that. That's what number? Oh, that's the best. You got it? 18. 18 here. 19. You got it? 20. Make sure you put on the right wrist up.
Right wrist. Okay, we'll put it here.
23. 23 is Ontario. 22 is not here. 23. And make sure you don't lose these numbers. Right here. Right here. 25 is S. Scarcasio. 27, Scarcasio. 27 here. 28. Lily's out there somewhere. Where is she?
Come here. Yeah, I know.
The only time we want the mothers in the act, see if the mothers come back here and your child should win, then they say, I gave her a break. She should win, they say, we don't want that. We want to keep the mothers off stage unless it's an extreme emergency. If your child is sick or if your child starts to cry, then you can go back there and take her because, you know, she's going to be really making a big noise, you know what I mean, out of line. So it's up to you to tell her just to pay attention. The chaperones are all here. We got 14 or 15 chaperones. Then we'll try that. And we'll have a really good time. And no matter who wins, please, I hope I win. Clap for me. All the children on stage, the chaperones will take care of 5 or 6 of them. By the way, the University of Sacred Heart is taking movies, television here on the side. The University is taking movies on the television. All right, let's have all the children. All the children on stage and all the mothers and daddies off.
That's it for the last edition of SHU Community Magazine for this season. We will be back in the fall, though, so keep an eye open for us. On behalf of the entire staff and crew of the magazine, I'm Ken Januszewski. Have a very good summer. This program was directed by Rebecca Abbott, produced by Michael Ciccarelli, Annette Dexter, Ken Januszewski, Mike Lewis, John Patterson, and Trish Tersani. The Little League story was done by Tony Pijar, Mike Quick, and Tim Shepard.
I'm Laura Samatolsky.
And I'm Mike Quick, and together we'll be bringing you the first of our fall issues of SHU Community Magazine. The magazine is produced by Sacred Heart University Media Studies students. Now Laura will tell you a little about our first story.
One of the United Illuminating Company's 3 plants was originally built to burn coal, but it was converted to burn oil before it went into production in 1956. In December of last year, however, it was reconverted to burn coal. Ken Januszewski investigated the advantages and disadvantages of this change.
The United Illuminating Company in Bridgeport threw itself a party on September 11th, and not just anyone was invited. The event marked the formal dedication of UI's reconverted Unit 3 coal firing plant. Among the guests and speakers were area politicians, business executives, state officials, and of course, the media.
Example, it was quite a traumatic thing to go through this conversion. It wasn't easy. It took continual discussions.
Maybe some older Bridgeport residents can recall UI burning coal back in the 60s and the now defunct power plant right behind me. But because of economies, environmental standards, and ease of handling, oil became the fuel of choice. Well, times have changed once more, and coal, along with nuclear and cogeneration power, has supplemented our dependence on oil-burned energy. UI is now the only coal-burning utility in the state, and has actually been burning coal here in Bridgeport for almost 9 months, although at a reduced capacity level. Clearly, there are benefits in this recent conversion to coal: a reduction of the dependence on foreign oil, stabilized costs of mass-produced electricity, and
UI's consumers have benefited to the tune of $15 million. That is, they've paid some $15 million less for the electricity used from this plant than they would have paid if the plant had continued to run on oil. That's certainly good news.
That is good news. But what about the drawbacks?
Well, it's understandable that what UI is trying to do with the conversion to coal.
Peter Gilmore represents ACORN, a local citizen action group which works with the Bridgeport Common Council on investigating the possibility of a publicly owned utility.
I mean, that's all laudable, but some of those savings may be negated by the continuing high cost of the Seabrook power plant construction.
Well, that's not such good news. Seabrook, of course, is the unfinished nuclear power plant in New Hampshire, and of which the United Illuminating Company has a major monetary stake in its eventual completion. Are there any other drawbacks?
We were concerned about 2 problems: air emissions and solid waste.
Suzanne Lengiel is the director and staff attorney of the Connecticut Fund for the Environment. Her organization worked with the Department of Environmental Protection on the licensing of Unit 3's permit.
They were going to produce about 40,000 tons of ash each year. And the question was, where are they going to put it? What we didn't want to see happen is we didn't want to see them convert to coal and then say, golly gee, we have this problem. Let's build a new landfill somewhere to solve it. That's what we didn't want to see. So that was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was the emissions from the plant. They were going to almost double their nitrogen oxide emissions. Also, they were going to be producing quite a lot of particulates, And the particulates from coal are much more hazardous to your health than the particulates from oil because they're smaller. They can be breathed in deeper into the lungs.
Needless to say, that's not good news either. But because of the concerns of Ms. Langeel's organization, Unit 3 has been subjected to the strictest regulations in acquiring its permit. Definite waste disposal plans have been arranged, the amount of nitrogen oxide emissions has been severely restricted, and there will be no significant rise in the coal particulates. So should UI ratepayers be concerned? I think a point that Ms. Langeel made in our conversation can answer that. The more electricity we use, the more oil, nuclear, and coal will be burned by UI in order to supply that need. And who wants to see UI have any more dedication parties? For SHU Community Magazine, I'm Ken Januszewski.
When Laura Somotulski and Annette Dexter heard about this next story, they thought it would bear investigation. Now here's their report on the teddy bear parade from Beardsley Zoo in Bridgeport.
Bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities are Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found off my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. When you look under the rocks and plants and take a glance at the fancy ants, then maybe try a few.
You eat ants?
You better believe it. You're gonna love the way they tickle. The bare necessities of life will come to you.
That's weird.
They'll come to you.
Imagine being a student at Andrew Ward High School when Saturday afternoon rolls around. It's 1:30, time to watch the Crimson Eagles take to the gridiron and battle an FCIAC foe. Right? Wrong. This year, Andrew Ward decided to drop their varsity football program. Ken Januszewski filed this report.
It would have been a fun thing, you know. We were out here to have fun, not to, you know, it's not pro football here. It's just to have fun. It's high school, and you're here to have fun.
Come on, D! Come on, D! Come on, Pick! Come on, go! Go! Go!
The stands are empty every Saturday afternoon at Andrew Ward High School in Fairfield. That means there will be no varsity football for Clint Pavarnik, Greg Vibrance, Mark Kramer, the rest of last year's varsity squad, or the entire school population for that matter. I asked the coach and principal to talk with me on camera about their decision not to field a varsity team this year, but they declined. So I found 3 ex-players, Clint, Greg, and Mark, and I asked them how they felt about not playing football this year.
Because a lot of the student body, they don't really care too much about the football program, you know. It's like if you win and it's, oh, great, but if you lose, you know, it's just like, forget it, you stink, and, you know.
I didn't get very along with the coach this year. We wouldn't pick captains this year. He told us we didn't deserve to be picked for captains. That made me mad. I wasn't really up for football myself because we hadn't picked captains, and he got to a point where he wasn't really coaching anymore. It was more or less just coming out here to get insulted and talked down to, and I just didn't want to put up with that anymore.
I didn't think that they would cancel the season, but then thinking about it, in a way, Coach had it coming to him by the way he would kick people off left and right. And I felt bad for the guys who were going to go out there and wanted to play, because I think that there was enough people for a team.
Like next year, I had heard that the teams might merge next year, so it definitely wouldn't be varsity at Ward.
Penny Bennington wanted to play varsity football so bad his senior year that he left Ward to attend Roger Ledlow High School, Ward's crosstown rival.
I feel kind of bad about leaving, but I'm happy because I'm playing football, doing what I want. I mean, I met a lot of new friends and everything, and still have my friends from over there. It's just I don't see them as often.
I miss it not coming out and stuff, because I found out in the spring that I wouldn't be playing, and I finally got over that and was looking forward to come out to the games and stuff and at least support the teams. But I don't know, it kind of just takes something out of our fall, senior year and everything.
In our next piece, Jeff DeMeo got up a little bit earlier than usual to talk to some Fairfield County train commuters.
Commuting by train is done by thousands of Fairfield County residents. The train has been a way of transporting commuters for many years. Everyone must find a way to travel to and from work, and the train is one option. I asked several early morning commuters their views on train traveling.
Well, it's a trade-off. I mean, if you want to work in the city, that's what you have to do, is you have to get up and go into the city. But it's certainly, you know, a good commute. You get a seat. The trains are fairly clean at night. If you work late and you get on like a 7-something train coming in, that's pretty scruffy.
How has it changed, do you think, over the years?
Not a great deal. We had our problems years ago. It's much more crowded, of course, but the on time, I think, is probably about the same.
They're much better on telling you what's happening because they have the two-way radios and things like that.
It's the best in the world, probably. Many veteran commuters feel that train travel has improved through the years. One reason this is true is the increasing upkeep of track conditions. Improvements and renovations are being made every day to improve the train ride.
I'm sure there are many things that can be changed. I think it's improved significantly over the years. I think that their on-time rate has improved. I think the condition of the trains has generally improved. I think that, in short, I think there's been a great deal of improvement. I'm sure that if they put their minds to it, they could think of things to improve it even further. But
it's a way of life. It's something we all have to do.
How long have you been doing it?
10 years.
Do you enjoy going back and forth, or it's getting to be a little bit of a hassle?
Well, I enjoy the lifestyle that this area provides for me, and I'm willing to put up with that hassle to have it.
For some, commuting is a way of life. For others, a hassle that must be contended with. However, tomorrow at 6 a.m., these walkways will be crowded, where people will board the trains and head to work. Jeff DeMeo, SHU Community Magazine.
Unlike Ward, the football programs are alive and well at Norwalk and Brian McMahon High Schools as these two city rivals met for the 25th time and battled for the Sam Tester Memorial Trophy in front of a large and colorful crowd. Tony Pijar and I covered this hard-hitting affair, so let's go to Andrews Field.
Way to work, Mark, way to work!
The issue of missing children has become a national concern.
Mike Lewis and Trish Trasani explored measures taken by local law enforcement and health agencies to combat this problem.
Last year, 1.5 million children were reported missing. This fact has become an issue of national concern. Communities across the country have increased their efforts to reverse this growing number. Locally, police and community health officials have expanded their child safety education and identification programs. I spoke to Officer Arnie DeCarolis from the Westport Police Department's Youth Division about the town's fingerprinting program.
The thing that really got it started was the television show Adam, when they publicized all the things that could possibly happen or did particularly happen in that case itself. And through that television show, we got a lot of interest, you know, from the schools and from the kids and the parents themselves. We started getting phone calls wanting to know if we could institute a fingerprint program for the kids themselves, and which we did set up. Very similar to an insurance policy. You need it, or you'd like to have it. It's something that you feel you need to make you feel better, or to make you feel more secure, and hopefully you'll never have to use it.
Bridgeport Police Officer C.J. Stites with his partner Safety Sam.
And what we do is go into the lower grades where oftentimes people are afraid of policemen or the big blue uniform, and we'll just sort of play with the children to get them used to being in the surroundings of a policeman. Oftentimes children are very afraid of us, and we have to break that, and Sam's the vehicle that does that.
I didn't realize that there is a Bureau for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. Didn't realize that a need existed for such an agency to be functioning on a daily basis.
I also spoke to Ann Alarcon and Sue Richter of St. Vincent's Hospital's Community Health Relations Department.